What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for sitting in with us here for the Week 10 already. Holy moly, Week 10 lineup show here at Sports Ethos. I'm Joe Orrico, your host, and I'm joined, as always, by Steve Vidovich. Steve, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing really well. This last week I was solo, and the internet cut out. I don't know if you know, Joe, but during last week's show we had a little tech issue. And I said that I hope it didn't go like it was in a forecast of what was going to happen to Croatia in the World Cup. And it ended up happening. Croatia lost to Argentina, but at least Messi, won it all yesterday. And that was good to see. I was happy to not have a repeat of France. And at least the team that beat us, they won it all. So you have to be happy about that.
As an Italian Canadian, I definitely feel your pain, probably depending on how you want to look at it, a worse extent, maybe not quite as bad because we wouldn't have anything we were actually playing for this year, really. Canada, we knew it was going to be nuts, but what a final. Like, I know this is a basketball show, but what a final of the World Cup. I was kind of zoning in and out because first of all, I was asleep and just kind of looking at my phone early in the morning. 2-0 in the 77th minute. I was like, okay, I can kind of doze off here for a few minutes. And I hear my dad yelling downstairs. Check my phone again. It's 2-2. I'm like, okay, I better go check out what's going on. But crazy, crazy stuff all around the sports world right now. But we are going to be talking to you guys for the next half hour or so about basketball, fantasy basketball in particular, your weekly lineup questions. If you guys have any, you can throw in trade stuff, free agent pickup stuff as well. But Steve, like usual, has prepared some notes here regarding lineup advantages, disadvantages. You want to kick us off, Steve, with what you've taken down for this week so far?
Yeah, so it's an interesting week with the holiday at the end of the week. You got that prime time games on Christmas Day that are just one game in every little stretch. So that's a 5-game window. But Saturday we have no games. And I think that has kind of like changed the schedule. So we don't have a very typical week. We have 4 teams that are playing 2 games. So if you guys are in weekly lineup settings, anybody who is basically like outside of the top 30, you might want to look at benching them in a 2-game week versus some of the teams that have 4-game weeks. You got Brooklyn Nets, Indiana Pacers, LA Clippers, and Miami Heat. They all only have 2 games this week. You only have 6 teams that have 4-game weeks, the best of which are probably the Mavs, the Bucks, and the Sixers because they have no back-to-backs. The Suns, the Knicks, and the Lakers are also dealing with 4-game weeks, and they all have back-to-backs, including the Lakers, whose back-to-back is the back end tonight. And then you have 20 teams with 3-game weeks. So it's pretty even schedule-wise, other than those 4 teams that play 2 games. I'd be very weary about fringe players on the Nets, the Pacers, the Clippers, and the Heat. If you're looking for a streaming advantage this week, I do like going with the Jazz because they play Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. And we only have 2 games on Thursday in the NBA. So that really gives you an advantage. You get 3 games out of the first 4 days of the week. And then I would drop whoever that streamer is on the Jazz. Maybe it's a Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Walker Kessler is not a stream at this point. So maybe you got NAW, you pick him up Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then you cut him loose and you pick someone up who's playing on Friday and then Christmas Day on Sunday. So those teams would be all of the teams that play on Christmas. They also play on Friday, except for the Warriors. So you want to target all of the other teams for streamers to end your week. I would go Jazz early on and then close your week with a Christmas Day game if you've got daily lineup settings. Weekly lineup, be wary of those 4 teams that have 2-game weeks.
Let me throw a question at you here while we're waiting for people to chime in. You guys can go ahead and throw any questions you got. 2-game week for the Clippers. In a vacuum, is Kawhi going to be in your starting lineup, or are you going to play it safe and keep him on the bench?
I think it depends on who I have to play, but in most cases, I would keep him on my bench.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
I mean, he started to come alive. He started to come alive a little bit, but I just have no real confidence that he can play. I mean, maybe he plays the next game. Maybe he doesn't. It's a flip of the coin, total flip of the coin. We have no idea. Probably safer to go on the bench, but at the same time, who are you going to be starting that has the upside of Kawhi? It's a tricky one. I have him in a lot of leagues. Unfortunately, I wish I didn't. Wish I didn't have to deal with it. But I'm going to have to think about whether or not to start him this weekend. I think for the most part, I'm going to be benching him where I can. I mean, in a 12-team league, it's going to be a little bit harder. But in the 10-team leagues where I have him, I think I'm likely going to be sitting him there.
Let's throw out some. I'd like to throw out a couple examples. Walker Kessler or Kawhi. If you had the choice between those two, Kessler, the Jazz, like I said, they have 3 games this week. Would you play Walker Kessler, or let's pick another guy? Let's pick a Kyle Anderson, a hot streamer who's been he's cooled off a little bit. Would you play either of those guys? They both have 3 game weeks versus Kawhi in his 2 games.
Kessler for sure. Anderson is a little more iffy, but Kessler for sure. I would, yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
The way he's been playing. And Anderson is, he's not somebody with such a high floor where I'd feel that comfortable. Where with Kessler, he's been producing even with limited minutes the entire season. So I'd be more inclined to start Kessler over Kawhi. But even as I say that, it sounds insane, doesn't it? Walker Kessler and what has he been averaging this year? 16 minutes a game, 18 minutes a game, producing, but over Kawhi Leonard, a 2-time Finals MVP. It is insane. But those are the conversations that we are having this year. In terms of the Pacers, the Nets, and the Heat, so is there anybody who is a clear, like not necessarily the same cloth as Kawhi per se, but any of those 2-game teams, like, okay, for Brooklyn, you're starting your Kyries and your KDs. Who else are you starting on Brooklyn? Or I guess maybe better to ask you, who are you sitting on Brooklyn this week?
I think I'm sitting everybody else other than those guys. The only one that could be close would be a Nick Claxton. If I'm punting free throw percentage, perhaps there's an argument for him to be made, but definitely a lower tier than the other guys. And then I'm sitting all of the other Nets guys in favor of perhaps a team that has 4 games this week, or even one that has 3 games. I just don't trust any of the other guys on a 2-game week. In terms of the other teams, we talked Clippers, we talked Nets. On the Heat, I definitely would be starting Jimmy Butler, and I would think Tyler Hero would be another guy I would consider starting, like a slight tier below Butler, but I'd even say above Claxton. I'd feel comfortable starting those 2 guys and Bam Adebayo. Everybody else on the Heat, I'm benching in a 2-game week. Then Indiana, Halliburton, and Miles Turner. Those are the 2 guys I'd be looking at. Other than that, I'm benching everyone else.
If Kyle Lowry is back, would you be inclined to start him, assuming that he is healthy?
Probably not.
No.
I guess there would be, like, if I'm looking him versus a 3-team or 3-game week by a team, it could be close. It would depend on the guy. Like, let's say Kyle Anderson or Kyle Lowry, I think I might go slight edge to Lowry. If we're talking somebody of a little bit higher upside, I would go with that player over Lowry. Somebody with like closer to top 60 upside, I would start them over Kyle Lowry all the time. If they had, like, let's say a top 60 upside and a top 100 floor, that's the type of player I would start in front of Kyle Lowry, even in a 3-game week.
Okay, that all makes sense. Still waiting for you guys to throw in some questions, so maybe we'll just take a look at any injuries that have popped up today so far. Devin Booker is going to be out tonight. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is questionable. Keldon Johnson also questionable. John Collins is probable. Rudy Gobert questionable. Off the top of your head there, anything stand out to you from those names?
Yeah, I'm interested to see John Collins' return and how it impacts the Hawks front court. There has been some streaming appeal. What happens to Onyeka Okongwu? I guess Clint Capella's still out, so he likely, will still retain value. And when Capella comes back and you got Capella and Collins there, what's going to happen to Okongwu? He was a luxury stash. I have him in a spot. I would love to see him in a starting role for an expanded period of time. That's what I'm hoping for down the stretch of the season, and why I've continued to stash him, even if the Hawks get healthy. Obviously, you have to be doing well in the standings in order to afford to do that. But I really like that's a situation I'm going to be monitoring for sure. Devin Booker sitting out tonight. I think that it might be a situation where he's getting rest in a back-to-back situation. The Suns play again tomorrow on Tuesday. If Booker gets ruled out on Tuesday as well, I think it's a hamstring, right? The same injury he had earlier last week and came back from after, I think, just a 1-game absence.
They called it a groin. But.
Okay. I wonder if they're correlated with each other or if it's a separate injury. If they're correlated with each other, I'd be a little bit nervous, hoping that I'm hoping for the Booker managers that this is just a back-to-back situation, get him an extra day off with them playing again tomorrow. So I wouldn't be really worried about Booker and his ability to play the rest of the 3 games this week. Today and tomorrow is their only back-to-back. In terms of Rudy Gobert, if he gets ruled out again tonight, Naz Reid has been playing fantastic in his place, and I really like using Naz Reid for as long as Gobert is out. Even when Gobert comes back, I mean, Reid definitely takes a hit with opportunity, but he could have some staying power on 12-team rosters while Cat remains out. So that is definitely a situation I'd be monitoring. If we get news that Gobert's out again tonight, Naz Reid looks like one of the strongest streams on the board today. And then I think I missed the other guy you were talking about, SGA being questionable.
SGA, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, Jalen Williams is a guy that I know you have been a big proponent of
Like
Jalen Williams.
Yeah.
What do you think about Jalen Williams this week, even with because I think Giddey's out as well. So it's looking like opportunity will be there for him regardless of SGA status.
Yeah, and the thing with him is he's been dropped a little bit because he just had a real stinker of a game. Might be somebody that might just be sitting on your waiver wire. He just shot 0 for 8, 1 of 2 from free throw line in 30 minutes too. 30 whole minutes, he had 1 point, went down 4% in terms of his Yahoo roster percentage. So he might be someone who's sitting around there. He's still been providing pretty decent value. I mean, he hasn't been that great recently. I don't know if he's like a shallow league guy, but if you're talking 12 teams and beyond, I think that he's probably worth it. Especially if SGA is in fact sitting out. I agree with you there. I've been a big fan of his throughout the season, but I think he's more so like, if you're in an 8 or 10 team league, I wouldn't worry about it. More 12 and beyond for me there with Jalen Williams. Am I right there, you think? Or would you take him as a shallow league guy there?
I would, the way I would look at it is if you're in a shallow league and you're specifically looking for certain statistics, maybe assists if SGA gets ruled out, and hopefully some scoring. I think he has the ability to produce across the board. I would look at him as like a very short-term stream in like a 12-team league. If you're searching for like an extra game played, if you're looking at like starting him in a weekly lineup league in a shallow format, absolutely not. Yeah. But like a spot stream here and there, depending on who's in and who's out, I don't think it's not crazy. And I think there is a path for him to have like, it's just more of a risk, more of a gamble than some of the other guys out there. So I like what you're saying, that more deep league, but there is a chance. I mean, we've seen him like pop off with some value over a somewhat sustained period of like a 2-week stretch. Yeah. So there could be a chance that he turns into a short-term stream, but outside of that, there's no like rest of season value. Although I'd be very high on him in Dynasty. Perhaps these like bad games is a great time to buy low. In Dynasty, maybe if he continues to struggle, it's actually a benefit. He shot the ball really well at Santa Clara. I think his shot is going to come around in the NBA. And I think he's going to be the type of player that contributes in multiple categories. So I think he will be a 9-cap player as soon as perhaps next season in 12-team leagues. But I agree with you that he's not a rest of season guy. I wouldn't start him in weekly, but a spot stream here and there in daily, especially if SGA gets ruled out, I like him. Would you start him tonight if SGA gets ruled out?
In a daily
daily change 12 team.
Yeah, I would start him. Now the question also becomes, are you going to burn an ad if you have, let's say, 4 ads for the week? Is he going to be worth one of your 4 ads? I think without SGA, I'd be a lot more inclined to. If SGA is cleared, maybe, but I wouldn't be so bullish about it in that case.
Yeah, I like that. I like that call. If you have 4 or fewer ads, stay away from him. If SGA is in, if SGA is out, he could be worth a look.
Yeah, I'm in so many different leagues, and I've actually had to cut down a couple of my leagues because I started off a bunch of free leagues and stuff just to have as many as possible. I had to cut away a couple because there's just too much between basketball and baseball and football and everything else. But yeah, it's tricky because some leagues there's 2 ads for the week. I have one league where it's 1 ad because it's like a specific weird commissioner thing, and then I have another league where there's unlimited ads. So it's very case specific. If you have unlimited ads, SGA is out. You have no problem rolling the dice there.
One ad.
There's one league where I'm in with some crazy people. One
Wow.
ad. They wanted to make it weird. It's 11 categories. It's one ad. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't think I'll be returning to the league next year because it's I don't want to swear on the stream here. Dan would give me crap about that, but I could swear thinking about it. One ad for the whole week. I could also swear if I talk about our football matchup that we just got through. Steve knocking me out of the SportsEthos Fantasy Football League, but I will not go on that because then I will take up the rest of the episode ranting about KJ Osborne. But let's get to the couple of questions we got here in the chat from you guys. 8-team head-to-head. I like a nice shallow 8-team league. Would you drop Bogdan to start DeJounte if he's cleared to play tonight? I think absolutely, yeah. As well as he's been playing, I don't know that he's going to be an 8-team league guy going forward. What are your thoughts here, Steve?
Yeah, if you're around, Steven, I'd love to know a couple other guys that you're considering. There's always like a handful of guys at the end of your bench, maybe 2 or 3 that you're deciding between. Definitely would play DeJounte and drop Bogdan in a vacuum because, I mean, you're looking at a guy with second round value versus Bogdan, who's more of like a, best case scenario, top 60, top 70 kind of guy. So definitely would make the move, but I would love to know who your other alternative drops would be in that situation, because perhaps I'm a little bit less high on the other guys. And I'd also be curious to know if it's a points league or 9-cat, 8-cat. That's always good to put in the chat. If you guys are asking questions, always good to know. But even regardless of the format, DeJounte is an absolute must-start option if he comes back tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Bogdan, like 10-team even. I would be more inclined to say yes, keep him. 12-team for sure, but 8 teams, there is a very deep waiver wire in 8-team league. So as well as he's played, I don't know that he's going to be a must-roster player. Who are some assist streamers for this week? 9-cat head-to-head. 12-team, Dennis Schroeder an option. What do you think here, Steve?
Yeah, as like an assist streamer, Schroeder is in the mix. Other guys that you could look at for assists this week, I mean, if SGA gets ruled out, you could give Jalen Williams a look for assists tonight on a relatively large card Monday. If Markelle Fultz is floating around, he's the best assist streamer because he has rest of season upside, in my opinion. So I prefer him to Schroeder. I do think that Schroeder is an option for if you're streaming assists, but let's say a Markelle Fultz is out there. I guess he would be my number one choice. The Magic play 3 games this week, and today is the back end of a back-to-back. Not sure about Fultz's status. I think he's cleared. I don't think he's sitting out back-to-backs. So I like Markelle Fultz. What about you, Joe?
Fultz is not on the injury report, so I believe he'll be playing. Just looking here at like the most widely available players who actually get you some assists. Maybe Tyus Jones in a 3-game week. I mean, it could be a little hit or miss because he's gone just over his last 4 games, 7, 11, 2, and 2. So he could be a decent source of assists there. The Pacers are one of those 2-game teams. I was going to say TJ McConnell, but not really. I was thinking maybe Kemba Walker might have been an option, but Luka is going to be coming back, so not really. Assists are arguably the hardest category that you can find on the waiver wire. I think Schroeder's probably a decent option, but it's tricky, man. Like there's not a lot. There's really not a lot. Maybe Malik Monk can give you some off the waiver wire. It's pretty scarce in terms of assists. I guess my number one here would probably be. I like Jones. I think I like Tyus Jones, but not really any of them I'm like that excited to go and add really in terms of assist streamers. Is your number one Fultz, you think?
Yeah, Fultz for me would be number one. I like the Tyus Jones, especially if they had a back-to-back. I'd like it even more. I'm wondering about D'Angelo Russell. If he got ruled out again tonight, I believe he's questionable once again. There could be some assist value on Minnesota. I would look at maybe them as a team to target. Not sure. I don't know exactly what Kyle Anderson's assist numbers have been lately. He's getting you 3.8 assists over the last week. And if D'Lo gets ruled out, perhaps Kyle Anderson is a low-end option for some assists. I'd love to see Jordan McLaughlin healthy with D'Lo out because I think he would be a really sneaky assist guy, but that's not the situation we're in because he's dealing with an injury. Perhaps Jalen Noel on the Wolves as well. I mean, what is he averaging? He's averaging 2.3 assists over the last week. So perhaps Kyle Anderson is a low end option as well for assists this week, especially if Russell is ruled out tonight.
Assists are usually my least favorite category. I try and always draft assists if I can. That's why I took Chris Paul in a couple places where I didn't necessarily really want him this year. They're just so hard to come by. Like in terms of streaming them, do you think it's the hardest category to stream?
I would say probably assists and blocks.
Blocks? Yeah.
Blocks can be tough. That's why anybody who picked up Walker Kessler, congrats to you guys.
Yeah.
Because that's a great ad at this point of the season. I think I agree with you. I think assists are even harder than blocks because you can always find a guy like even a Luke Cornett at times can just give you blocks. Nothing else. He's not going to do anything else. But if you're like the last day of the matchup and you need 1 or 2 blocks, not now that Robert Williams is back, but before the Time Lord came back, which I was wrong about that. He came back before Christmas, and I'll eat that one.
I wasn't expecting that timeline. I was thinking like maybe a little after Christmas. I think the last time we were on together, I said probably like in the new year, but he beat that timeline quite a bit. And if you drafted him, you're probably pretty happy. And you might have even been able to just pick him up off the waiver wire, depending on the depth of your league. So congrats there. Speaking of the Time Lord, we have some context from Steven there on that 8-team question. Worst players at the moment are Ben Simmons and Robert Williams. You're in a pretty good spot, especially in a points league. You don't have to worry about Simmons and any of the nonsense that comes with him in category leagues. I think I'd still be inclined to drop Bogdan. What about you?
Yeah, the Time Lord, I mean, he is on a minutes restriction, and we're talking about a points league. So how much more does he have the value in a points league that he does in a category format? With
Not the same.
Yeah, I think Simmons I would keep, and I would decide between Robert Williams and Bogdan Bogdanovic, just because I don't know how valuable your block shots are in a points league. Probably not as much as scoring. And the Time Lord just doesn't give you the type of scoring that you probably would need in an 8-team league. I'm wondering if, because Bogdan, he scores a lot more than the Time Lord. So there might be an argument to be made for dropping the Time Lord and keeping Bogdan. Is that crazy of me to think?
No, I think the standard thing in points leagues is 3 points for a block. I think generally, depending on which site you play on, obviously, but I think it's generally you get 3 points for a block. Will he make up enough ground throughout the season? Like right now, he's averaging 7.5 and 5. But if you look what he did last year, 10 and 10 with 2 assists, a steal, 2.5 block or 2.2 blocks. Hard for me to do the math in my head there.
But how long until he gets that point? I like that. And I think that would be valuable. But how long are we waiting until he gets fully ramped up? That's
a month. Do you think maybe?
Yeah, I would say, probably a month. Yeah.
And I guess you could make the argument too in an 8-team league, like we were saying, the waiver wire is going to be flush with options. Maybe he doesn't get picked up because his game is. I mean, I view most things, whatever sport we're talking about, through a category / roto sense. So I'm probably a little bit skewed there in terms of my thoughts about him. I just feel like rest of season, he has more of a path to being a 30+ minute producer. But again, maybe I am just letting my category roto bias sneak in here. You've talked me into making it closer in my head than it was initially. It's close. It's pretty close. Can you maybe just, if you could humor us, just tell us, is it standard points league scoring? Are there, extra minuses for missed free throws or any other stuff like that? And maybe tell us what they're averaging or what they averaged last year. Because whatever Robert Williams averaged last year, I'm going to say roughly 30, 35 fantasy points. I'd like to think that that's probably close to or better than what Bogdanovic is going to give you. It's pretty close, I guess, in a points league. I just think maybe in my head, the name brand of Williams is worth more than Bogdanovic at this point, but it's probably closer than I initially thought.
Yeah, in a category league, I think it's a slam dunk. You drop Bogdanovic, but in a points league, I would be curious to know, what their averages are, and whatever Robert Williams averaged last year. I think me and Joe both think that it's going to take about 30 days, maybe slightly less, for him to get to that level.
Yeah, it's 2 games, 18 minutes each game. He's not there yet, but maybe this is a chance. I mean, not for you, but for other people, especially in a category league, to maybe see if you can buy low on Robert Williams, or even just pick. He's still only 84% rostered. I mean, he's somebody who should be right at 100%, I think. Not that there's many players who actually are at 100%, but he should be damn near close to it anyway. He should be on 16% of waiver wires. Granted, there could be some points leagues mixed in there, some inactive leagues maybe, but it seems a little bit low, 84% for Robert Williams. Next question we got here. Ben Simmons for Chris Middleton trading Cat League. Are we worried about Chris's injury concerns and his slump? Definitely a little bit, but I think in a category league, I'd be more comfortable with Middleton over Simmons rest of season. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I think your only risk there is this new injury that's kept him out for a few games. That's the only concern there. Without that injury risk, I would say Middleton for sure in this trade. So I think it's just a matter of how risk averse you are, how much you're willing to take on, because there is a little bit of risk with Middleton and this knee issue. But I mean, he's coming back from a left wrist injury, so hopefully this knee concern isn't anything major. And if that's the case, then it's a slam dunk for Middleton for me.
Yeah. I know our good friend Dan Bespris has been pulling hair out on his podcast recently because of Chris Middleton. He drafted him everywhere. He's been missing out on Middleton quite a bit. It's frustrating, but I think overall, I'd still take him over Ben Simmons. Guys, this is not going to be the longest show. We're going to go maybe 5-10 more minutes. Get your questions in. I do have to run to a doctor's appointment, which is why we're doing it a little bit earlier today. My apologies, but get the questions in while you can right here. Is there anything that's like in terms of topics this week that you think is very important for people setting lineups other than what we've talked about in terms of schedules? Is there anything else that kind of comes to mind as being really important that people should know?
I think in terms of like scheduling this week, from what I looked up, it doesn't seem like there's as many back-to-backs as normal. So we might see less sit-outs in back-to-back situations. I think that, like I mentioned at the top of the show, which, by the way, like and subscribe to this show. That way you get all of our amazing content, including Dan Bespris. He's been doing his podcast live on YouTube and even taking some Q&As at the end, which has been really nice for the viewers. I've even popped on and listened to the legendary Dan. So definitely like, subscribe, you guys. You get all of our content. But at the top of the show, I talked about the Jazz. And I think the Jazz have a really good schedule at the beginning of this week, playing Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. That seems like the best schedule. You got the Wizards are the other team that plays on both Tuesday and Thursday, which are low volume days, but they do not play today on Monday. So I'd be more inclined to go a Jazz route. So you get Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. But the Wizards could be another team to target for streaming purposes and daily lineup settings, and then let them loose after Thursday and pick another team up for Friday, Sunday. That's definitely the way that I'd be targeting this week. And like I said, very few back-to-backs going on this week, which is really good for fantasy managers with, those guys rostered that are going to sit out in back-to-back situations. What I'm going through personally as a fan of the Warriors is I'm struggling mightily with the loss of Steph Curry. Warriors are going to lose a lot of games. It's not going to be pretty. I'm nervous about even their chances of making the postseason now, which I was not worried at all when Curry was healthy. So that's just on a personal note, what I'm going to be watching this week. Dante DiVincenzo is one of my favorite stream options long-term while Curry's sidelined. He's been playing really well. If you need out-of-position rebounding help, Dante is a guy that I would highly recommend. But, yeah, big takeaways for me this week. Jazz, target them Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Let them loose, and then target a Christmas Day potential streamer for Friday, Sunday. That's what I would do.
Missing Steph Curry did not stop you and your Warriors from beating the pants off my Raptors yesterday. So I think you guys, well, maybe that's more a testament to how poor the Raptors are playing right now. But man, I'm seeing all kinds of stuff today talking about tearing down the Raptors. It's been a tough morning over here, but let's keep it going. Let's talk about a couple more questions here before we let you guys go. SGA has been carrying my free throw along with everybody else's for that, as a fact there. But somebody has offered me Giannis for SGA and Hart. I have both Luka and Zion, but they haven't been too awful from the line. Well, that's a pretty okay. A couple of thoughts here. if you have Luka and Zion and Giannis, then you are fully punt and free throws at that point. I know they haven't been that bad, but at that point, you would be in a full punt. So that's something you have to decide on. But I think that SGA on his own carries at least, excuse me, guys, carries at least as much, if not more value than Giannis right now, based on how they've been playing. Am I crazy? I know it feels a little crazy to say, but I think SGA has been the top 5 or 7 player, where Giannis is, I know, because of free throws, in the 60s or 70s or something like that. So I think you could probably aim a little higher, especially if you have to throw in Josh Hart as well. I'd be inclined to not take it personally, but your team is already built to kind of semi punt without SGA there leading the way. So kind of conflicting, but I think I would lean towards not accepting it. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I definitely don't think that you need to toss in Hart. I agree with
Yeah.
you 100% there. If you're going to make this deal, take Hart off the table and just do a straight up 1-for-1. And if they won't take it, then I would just, tell them to pound sand, because I wouldn't give Hart away in that deal. Totally with you on that. Or is it Giannis? Yeah, for SGA and Hart. So I think, Joe, you hit it on the head. If you want to fully embrace a punt free throw build, which you will lose free throws every week with Giannis, adding Giannis to your roster. Do you want to do a full punt free throw build? The one risk with holding on to SGA is the tank risk at the end of the season, which maybe we won't see from the Thunder this year. Maybe it'll be their first year trying to be competitive. I would say that's the biggest risk in not making this deal. Is SGA sitting out towards the end of the year. If this is a roto league, that's not as big of a worry. If it's a head-to-head league, that is a huge worry. So that would be the only reason why I would consider it. By doing a 1-for-1 straight up, is the risk of SGA sitting out, as he's done the last 2 seasons, I believe. So that's your only risk there, and reason to pick up the Giannis side. If you're confident that the Thunder will play this season out, then I would hold on to SGA.
You're taking like the highest positive free throw guy and trading him for the worst negative free throw guy. Just about. It's a huge change to your team. You might be like an 85, probably not quite 85, considering Luka and Zion. Probably like an 82% roughly free throw team, down to like you're probably losing 10% off your free throws for that swap every week, or roto might be rest of season. It's a big trade. I would probably aim for a little bit higher even than Giannis if you're dead set on trading SGA, which I wouldn't be necessarily, because we don't really know what Oklahoma's going to do. Maybe they, like you say, maybe they sit him for a 3rd year in a row down the stretch. Maybe they don't. We really have no idea what they're going to do. It's a crapshoot, but I would probably aim a little bit higher than what you're currently offered here. I think you can do probably a little bit better. Guys, this is going to be probably our last question, unless you guys have some other last-minute things to cram in here. Who are we prioritizing between Kessler versus Jalen Duren in cat leagues? I think it's pretty close. Probably lean Walker, but I'll leave this one to you, Steve. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to lean Walker. I agree that it's close. I just think that his production in limited minutes has been better than what we've seen in limited minutes from Duren. So I'm going to go Walker Kessler on this one.
Yeah, I would have to agree there. Guys, this is going to be a little bit more concise than what we have done so far this season and what we will do going forward. Like I said, I got to run to the doctor, but thank you guys for participating. If you guys can hit the like and subscribe buttons on the way out, that would mean the world to us. Check out sportsethos.com, and you guys can find Steve and I on Twitter at Steven Vidovich, Steven with a PH, of course, and at Joe Orrico 99. Guys, thank you so much. We will see you again next week. Cheers.